So hello and happy lunch. This is a lunchtime panel, so don't feel badly about clinking your forks and knives and, doing the pass the this chatter. We've decided we're a pretty informal, casual, but innovative group. So we're all going to sit here, hang out, tell you a little bit about ourselves and about the organizations that we represent. And then we hope that at least half of our time will be spent on questions that we hear from you. So without further ado, I'll speak a little bit about the Vancouver farmers markets. I don't know if you're familiar with us, but actually we're about more than just farmers markets. Since our inception in 1995, we've actually been thinking a lot about food systems. So we're interested in producers. We're interested in how food is produced, who is producing our food, and really what's involved in that whole process. And Sean actually is one of our producers at the markets we're excited to work with. We're interested in distribution. I don't know how much you know about local food distribution, but there is a lot of room for growth. If I could say anything to you, if you take anything away from me on local food, if you've got brilliant ideas in local food distribution, bring them on. We need them huge. We talk about purchasing and consuming food. So we run farmers markets. People are buying and selling, but we like to create places where there's relationships between the farmer, between the consumer, where you really do have a dynamic engagement point. And we're really happy. We actually run 8 weekly farmers markets in Vancouver. We have over 270 vendors and making good things happen here. We talk about waste, what happens to our food scraps when we're done with them. And Lisa, we're really glad that you're on the panel because you'll talk a little bit more about that too. So local food is still considered to be part of the alternative food movement. And we think at Vancouver Farmers Markets that it's about time for that to change. We think that it is actually going to become mainstream. Very recently, Ipsos Reid and the BC food processors did a survey, and they found out that local is the #1 term that Canadian consumers look for when they're considering their food choices. It beats organic, it beats natural, it even beats low fat. So that's big. That's all Canadian consumers. Local beats low fat. Low fat. Local beats low fat. I like it. So anyway, we're really excited to be in this room, that you guys are all in here and that you've got brilliant ideas. You're making great connections. And I'll talk a little bit about who else we have here too. So starting us off, we've got Sean Dory. His bio is in here, and since we're running a little bit low on time, I won't say too much about him other than Soul Food Street Farms, Sean Dory.
Hello. Is it on? Oh, there we go. All right. As you know now, I'm Sean Dory. I run a project called Soul Food Street Farms, which, does anybody know what Soul Food Street Farms is? Oh, wow. Education ready to happen here. We run an urban farming social enterprise that was started in the downtown east side. So basically what we do is we convert large lots into farms, and then we train and employ folks with addiction and mental illness from the downtown east side, and they work at the farms, and then we sell the produce at places like the Vancouver Farmers Market to pay for those jobs. We started in 2009. We started with 6 staff on a quarter-acre site in the downtown east side on the 700 block of Hastings Street. And then in 2 years after we started, we got a large grant from a private foundation and some patient capital from Van City, and we expanded to a 2-acre site next to Rogers Arena and another site at First and Clark under the Grandview Viaduct. We originally started with 6 staff. We then had 25 staff. We now sell at 4 to 6 farmers markets at the peak of the season. We are selling to 30 some restaurants, and we have 106 members CSA, which is pretty impressive for the small amount of space that we have. So we're a little bit of a hybrid model. We are a business that's owned by a charity because of the work that we do. So all of the stuff that we do with training and employing folks with addiction issues happens in our charity, and then the actual business of farming happens through our business, which is Soul Food. We grow in boxes. So we have about 4,000 boxes or more, actually 5,000 boxes spread throughout the 4 sites. We grow about 40 different vegetables. So we're growing things like arugula, radish, kale, collards, chard, lettuce, fennel, radicchio, carrots, beets, tomatoes, peppers, basil, dill, cilantro. Our shares, which a community supported agriculture is where people buy shares at the front of the season and then you get produce for 20 weeks out of the year, are available online currently at soulfoodfarms.com/pickup, just if anybody's interested. Always selling. We have found that the work of getting your hands dirty has actually been really beneficial to our staff. So I've worked in the downtown Eastside community for about 7 years and in different facets. And we have about an 84.5% retention rate with the people that we work with, which, if you've ever been in that community, is fairly amazing. We're pretty lenient, but it's worked out really well. How much time is that? How is that?
It's good.
Okay. I'm just going to mention one more thing. I also am the founder of another organization which would be relevant for this group here, which is the Young Agrarians, which is a group that was started to promote and support young farmers in Canada. I actually just got back yesterday morning from New Bay, where a gathering of the National Farmers Union youth got together to work on federal farm policy. I know that sounds really interesting and fun. And we had a Young Agrarians mixture with 85 young farm entrepreneurs that all got together to talk about farming and drink wonderful local beer together. So this has been a very youth-filled week for me. But yeah, if anybody has any questions about that organization as well, I'd be happy to answer them.
So you guys know the way that we're running the panel, everyone will get a chance to introduce themselves a little bit, and then the second half we'll be able to ask questions. I think that Sean gave you the really long list of ingredients that they're growing right now, because we base some of our farmers market space on what kind of diversity of food crops come to market. So Sean just increased his stall space at the markets. All right, so next up we have Sam Phillips. She's co-founder at Victory Gardens, but she can speak much more to what she is doing in her organization than I can. So, Sam.
Thank you very much. So my name is Sam Phillips, and I'm one of 3 co-founders of a business called Victory Gardens. We're based here in Vancouver, and we're a worker-run co-op. And our overarching mission is to help people on an individual level how to grow their own food. So we provide everything that's necessary from the phase of infrastructure to the phase of harvest. And we're mostly residentially based, but we also work with some restaurants, companies, and community gardens. So I think we have a unique business model in that we're a little bit different from an urban farm or a CSA. We like to refer to ourselves as urban farmers for hire, just to kind of demystify what we do. So we have a few different levels of service we build. So we will help you build your garden infrastructure if you don't already have one. We teach. This is a huge part of our business. We provide one-on-one coaching services, group coaching services to teach people how to grow their own food. We also provide custom garden maps and planting guides, and we also teach workshops. And then finally, we grow. We also offer maintenance services, which we like to compare being about the same cost as a weekly CSA box. So before we formed the business, we were growing food for a few years, just with people in the community and with our friendship circle. And we realized that there was this huge growing need for education surrounding growing food, and that people really wanted to start doing it on an individual level to reduce their carbon footprint. So we realized that we were going to be in mostly a residential sector, so we thought the name Victory Gardens was really fitting. Is anyone familiar with what Victory Gardens are? Yeah, a few of you. There was a campaign during the First and Second World Wars to encourage people to grow food in their own spaces, to promote self-sufficiency, and to decrease the amount of imported food coming into the country. And so while it's a different context, we felt that this sort of sense of camaraderie and community and self-sufficiency were really important, and we feel like it is now, but in a different context. And then I just wanted to speak a little bit to why we decided to become a worker-run co-op. Is anyone familiar with that model? Oh, a few more of you. Woo! So worker-run co-ops are a little bit different from consumer co-ops. The members are the workers, and so it's a system designed to provide sustainable employment to its members. We find that this is a really fair, democratic, and really encouraging environment to work in. We also became a worker-run co-op because we really wanted to be part of the solution in providing more jobs for people in the food growing sector. We're also seeing a lot of co-ops emerging in BC. There's Shift Cargo Delivery, Moto, which is a consumer co-op, Vancouver Tool Library. So we're really excited to be a part of the co-op community as well as the food growing community. So I guess I'll just finish by speaking a little bit to why we do what we do. We really want to turn underutilized space in the city into food growing space, and we really want to encourage people on an individual level to do it themselves and get out in the community and be a part of a positive change. I think that's it.
Thanks, Sam. If you are not familiar with Victory Gardens, it would be really, really easy to Google them. They have a lot of fantastic magazines and articles and photographs. It's fantastic. So I encourage you. I'll plug you for you.
Thank you. We're victorygardensvancouver.ca.
So if you didn't hear that, victorygardensvancouver.ca. Okay, and next on our list is Lisa Van Sturmer. I don't know, Lisa, if you know this, but I had the pleasure of hearing her at an other youth gathering where she was speaking to and motivating young people. So I think she does this often. I think she has a passion for this, and so I'm really excited to hear what she has to say today.
No pressure. Hi guys, my name is Lisa Van Sturmer. I'm the founder and owner of Growing City, and we were actually North America's first premium office composting service. We started before composting was really cool, and then I was very delighted when they passed the ban here in Metro Vancouver, banning organics from the landfill and kind of making it a mandatory service. So I knock on wood for that one because that was a happy accident. People kind of asked me, did I see that coming? I probably should say yes, but I didn't. So I lucked out. I was very pleased with that. But I didn't start in the environmental sector. I actually started more in television. I worked for a professional MMA fighting show for a couple years, and then in the video game sector. So a very long way away from the environment and doing things with sustainability. And actually, I always had a passion for working with the environment, but I never thought that I could make any money doing it, which is not true. So if any of you guys are thinking about being entrepreneurs, are any of you entrepreneurs already or thinking about it? A couple of you? Some of you? Okay, good. Don't worry. You can still have a great life in sustainability. So I'm here to say. So I've been an entrepreneur for about the last 4.5 years. It's been very exciting. And I was asked on the panel to speak a little bit about entrepreneurship in the sustainability space. So I'm not going to be very long on here because I want to get to questions because that's the best part of being on a panel. I will say for those of you that are entrepreneurs right now, I'm a Canadian delegate for the G20 Youth Entrepreneurship Summit, and we are actively looking for some more entrepreneurs to come to the conference that we're going to in July in Sydney, Australia, to help encourage global policy to support youth entrepreneurship. So it's a really cool conference. I'm really pressuring you guys to apply. So come talk to me afterwards if you're interested. I'll throw it back to you. Oh, growingcity.com. Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks, Al. So this is your turn. You've heard a little bit from all of these guys. I encourage you. They represent a wide spectrum of how you can start a business, what context, what models you want to use. Specifically around food, you can ask food questions, but be creative. Ask about their innovations. Ask about their challenges. And I think there are microphones floating around the room. Yes. So raise your hand. I think we'll go one by one unless that takes too much time. So if you've got a question, put your hand up in the air and we'll put them to the panel. Got one over there.
There should be another mic there. Is Allison? Choose this one. Okay, just a sec. I'll run down.
Got a question for Sean.
For Sean.
Just wondering if you could speak to some of the challenges you face with employing people from the downtown east side.
Yeah, it's hard. So what's hard? Well, what's hard about it is that when you take a traditional and business model, and usually most social enterprises that employ people are already marginal businesses on their own, and then you marry that to a marginal population, it's like, and we're going to be successful. So that's challenging, and the friction is like you want to provide space for them to thrive, but you also have a business to run. So, and also in the nonprofit sector, like we're a business that's owned by a charity, but you're still a business. And most funders and the way people think about this is a pretty new space. So social capital, social finance, these sort of new nonprofit structures are pretty fringe right now. And everybody wants you to start really small and grow, except businesses have a right size. So you need to have a certain amount of space to grow a certain amount of vegetables to make the whole thing work. But it's hard to like do that in this context. There's many other challenges around other parts of the business. I would say like the part with the people that are from the downtown east side has actually been like one of the most positive aspects of the business. But yeah, there are definitely challenges.
Thank you. Question for Lisa about your business model, because I've often thought about the Metro Vancouver ban on organics as a Kickstarter for a compost or organics recycling for a residential/office environment. If you're composting within an office space, we have a worm farm within ours which is underproductive. Well, it's overproductive in fruit flies, and that's about it. What do you do with the compost once you've got it? Like, where do you take it? How is it processed? And then what is it used for after that?
Great question. So we work with Metro Vancouver. If you're taking waste out of the city, you have to take it to a facility that's licensed. So you can't take it anywhere, unfortunately, because there's a lot of new composting projects and farms that are opening up. The UBC composting farm is one of the places where we'd like to take our material, but they're not yet licensed with the city, so we can't. There are 2 facilities available to take material, which is Harvest Power in Richmond and EnviroSmart Organics in Delta. And both of them are producing great compost and great soil. We work mostly... It's different, I swear. They're not the same. But they do go back into the urban agriculture industry or the agriculture industry in particular. So people that are landscapers, people that are farmers are buying back that material. So it's really important for us that it's not just being shipped off in bags to China. It is being used here locally, which makes us feel really good because then, sometimes we'll give soil or compost back to our clients, and then for them it really completes the cycle. So they've produced that waste, we've collected it, it's been processed, we can bring it back, they can grow things in it. We have a lot of clients that have rooftop gardens, or they'll do planters outside their office, and it's a pride point for them to know that they are working in a closed loop. So I think the thing that's great about the ban, the organics ban, is that it's changing the way that people think about waste and turning it away from something that's you never think about. You don't care about it. You put it in the bin. It's like it never happened. And make it into something that's actually kind of fun, I think. We're almost there. We're almost there. But I think it will become something that isn't a pain point anymore, but a source of pride for people.
Can I just get a time check on how much time we have left for questions? 25 minutes? Awesome. Okay. We've got one over there, and I think someone had a question up front here, too, so if someone wants to migrate this way. So number 1, number 2.
Hello. Oh, good. Thank you guys all for being here. I have a question about urban beekeeping, and I'm wondering if any of you guys can speak to the bee crisis that we're facing or urban beekeeping and how that kind of complements your respective businesses.
Fortunately, there are a whole bunch of urban beekeepers around, and Vancouver proper doesn't really have an issue with bees, so we have lots of pollinators on our farm, including birds and bees, so it's not an issue with our production. It is, however, a big issue generally. In the agriculture sector, there's currently a campaign that's co-sponsored by the National Farmers Union that's about neonicoticides and the different pesticides that are causing harm to the bee population. So let me relate it to business. In terms of like when you're starting a business, I just kind of recently came across this, is when you're doing your threat analysis, one of the things that you should be looking at is policy threats. Because in our situation, none of the stuff that we're doing now was legal or is currently legal. And there are other things like Bill C-18 that's going through the federal government right now, which will effectively take away farmers' rights. You need to know about these threats so you can be involved in how to mitigate those threats. And I think it's just responsible business practice to understand where your business fits in a policy context, including things like environmental threats that are caused by our policy threats.
Is this on? I actually just want to mention Hives for Humanity is a really great organization to look up. If anyone here has space at all, anywhere where they live, you can contact them and they can get bees in your space.
Sorry, and if I'm allowed to reiterate the policy threat thing that Sean mentioned, Vancouver Farmers Market, same story, 1995, it was illegal to sell vegetables off trucks in the city. And so when we are being social innovators, when we are pushing the envelope on what we're allowing in society, we really do have to be ready to be bold and, push, work, be activists in getting things done. And having a great business plan while doing that is a good way to get it done. The front mic. You try it again. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a new entrepreneur, and so I commend all of you for continuing at it for as long as you have, because it's very difficult. I guess my question is actually, out of curiosity's sake, did you bootstrap everything and use volunteers as like a capacity building effort, or did you raise any money? And ironically, I used to work at one of these organizations, so I used to work at Sustainable Development Technology Canada, which is for clean tech companies, but even having worked at these institutions, it doesn't make it any easier to access funds. So I'm just interested to see, what your story was.
Victory Gardens bootstrapped. We had no funding initially for the first couple years of business. Thankfully, we didn't need a bricks and mortar. We were able, because we're a mobile-based business, we were able to make that work. And then we received funding from Van City after that in order to be able to grow. But we rely a lot on volunteers and extra hours.
We totally bootstrapped in the beginning. We ended up getting a $15,000 loan from the Canadian Youth Business Foundation, and that's what we used to start the company. We had a minivan that we collected the compost in for the first year, which seemed like a great idea because we didn't have very much money, but was a real challenge because there's no separation between us and the front and the compost in the back. So we got really hands-on with it. But, that's part of the joy of starting a business. You look back on those early days and you think, I can't believe we used to do that. Like, we didn't, obviously we've got real trucks now with compactors and everything. But at the time, I was hauling bags of compost in and out of that van and taking it to the facility where they didn't even take compostable bags at the time, and we would have to rip them open and dump the stuff out. And so, things change. But I think the key thing is to remember to just start and then just iterate as you go. But there's a lot of great programs, especially if you're going into the clean tech space or sustainability in tech. There's a lot of venture funds that are looking for businesses like that in Canada, particularly in Ontario. But if you are just like early days, CYBF is great. You can get up to $50,000 unsecured. totally an awesome resource. Small Business BC as well. There's a lot of opportunities, particularly actually as a woman as well. There are some great opportunities there. The Women's Enterprise Network is a great place to start. So there's a lot of great organizations that have money. They're not going to give it to you for free. The grant days are gone. Sorry, government. Thanks. There's no more free money. But there's a lot, unless you're maybe a nonprofit. But if you are knocking on doors, there's a lot of fantastic programs. It's just that a lot of them are underground. They're hard to find. So ask everybody you know. But definitely we bootstrapped, and I'm glad that we did. And then we ended up going on Dragon's Den last year, and it was awesome. And then we didn't need an investor, so it was really cool. Good luck.
We're slightly different. We definitely bootstrapped the first year. We used volunteers to build our first farm. But we're, like, a lot of our targets are around employment. So, like, those quick turns that entrepreneurs can sometimes make, we didn't exactly have the option because some of our funding was linked to how many people we had employed. So it's not exactly easy to make those, like, short, quick decisions that sometimes you need to make as an entrepreneur. I would say, yeah, bootstrap, but also know what you need. So have plan A and have plan B, because sometimes by not being totally upfront with how much capital you need, you end up like, if you're not honest about what you really need to get it going, you're going to be under a whole hell of a lot of stress for as long as it takes you to get the capital you need. And a lot of times it just carries over year to year. So just, even though bootstrapping, yes, but just be honest with what your needs are.
Sorry, one more thing. I think everyone should have a business mentor too. Really, really important.
Hi guys. I had a question about, because all of us probably have a million great ideas, but how did you actually, what was the thought process of getting your initial idea and then being like, yeah, actually I'm going to go for it?
That's a great question. And I'll be honest, when I was starting my business, I didn't think compost. It was never the top of the list for me. I'd actually never experienced composting before. I started before I started my company. But I really wanted to do a business that was in the environmental space. And when I was still working in television, I read a really great book, which I highly recommend, called The 4-Hour Workweek, which you've probably all read. And, you know, I had this dream about starting a company. So I created a checklist of everything that I wanted my life to be after I built this company. So I wanted to do something with the environment. I wanted it to be something that had a tangible, positive impact. I wanted it to be something that we could scale, something that we could hire people to do, something that people wanted to do but didn't want to do themselves. So it was like a big list of everything that I was really passionate about. And then it took about a year to find what idea actually checked off all the boxes. And I didn't really think about composting until I went to Savory Island, which is a small island off the coast of BC, and it's mandatory composting. I went with a big group of friends. At the end of the week, we had almost no garbage, maybe like a little Safeway bag of garbage between about 6 adults. And I was shocked by just the impact that composting could have on waste. So when I went back to the studio where I was working, and we would be eating all the time, and coffee, at the end of the day, our garbages would just be full of waste. And I started feeling really guilty about it because I knew that it wasn't necessary. So when I went online to look up, you know, who's going to pick this up, because I'm not taking it home to my apartment to do nothing with, I looked for someone that would just come and take it out of the office. I couldn't find anybody, not in Canada, not in the US, not even in Europe, that were focused on office composting. So that's when I thought, oh, wait a minute, and I went back to my list, and it checked off all the boxes. The only advice I would give anybody that's starting a business is to make sure you incorporate some type of recurring revenue structure into your model. That has saved my butt so many times, knock on wood. But that was the only business thing I really thought about when I was building the model for Growing City, and it's been a huge gift as far as growing a business, surviving, because the first couple years are really challenging, but find a way to get some kind of monthly recurring revenue from your clients, because that's going to help you grow and scale. And if you're ever going to exit or sell your business, that recurring revenue is something that investors or buyers are really looking for.
I actually have oddly a similar story to Lisa. At the point when I started working in the downtown east side, I was having like a crisis moment in my life, and I was a struggling actor, actually. I went to theater school originally, and I was running nightclubs on Granville Street, actually. Good old days. And I needed to do something that married environmental and social. Like, I just had to like change, or I was going to drop dead, I think, at that point. So I found an organization that married those two things together. And at the time when I was making that decision to either go work for an organization or do something else, I wanted to either farm or go work in social environmental space. So over the next couple of years, as I was working for this organization, I slowly started to work with a group of people on this idea of like urban farms for people of low income. And luckily there was a few models out there that were pretty good, and I found a really great mentor around the farming piece, and it all kind of came together. Yeah.
Hi. My question was about when you're starting your business or when you're operating your business, the issue of overcoming challenges. You mentioned that already. I was hoping you could speak to some challenges you experienced and what you did to overcome those in operational terms, if you can.
I would say one of our primary challenges is, because we're a service-based business, is the perceived value of our services, especially given that it's in the food growing sector and that farmers traditionally don't make a lot of money. I think that we're working hard to overcome the challenge of the perceived value of learning how to grow your own food, and communicating that it's maybe more of a necessity than people perceive it to be.
We had so many challenges just around startup, just around like siting stuff for a number of reasons. Environmental issues like contamination, short-term leases, siting greenhouses that have irrigation in them, but the city requires a full sprinkler system to be able to, like, in case of fire. These are all things that, so what we actually had to find a champion inside the bureaucracy to help make it work. So we had a planner that really championed, and also we had a great council at the time, but to be able to like basically break the law regularly and still keep going. So that was kind of our strategy. We found champions, so we knew we would just get slapped on the wrist and it wouldn't be a huge thing. We knew that everybody wanted it, and then we just did it anyway. Those kind of challenges, if you don't have somebody in the system that's pulling you as you're pushing, there's no way. You're dead in the water. So it was good to know that you had champions at the municipal level that were helping out.
I think that's a great question. We had lots of challenges when we were first starting. I think for us, we got really busy in our first year a lot sooner than we anticipated. We put up a website to go to a conference, the first I'm forgetting the name right now. Anyways, it was a huge conference. We put up a website, like a really basic one, just so that we could go and hand out cards, and our cards would go to something. And we ended up getting phone calls almost right away. So we didn't have a vehicle, we didn't have bins, we didn't have uniforms, we had nothing. But we were like, we have to say yes to everything that comes our way because we're desperate. So we ended up, buying that minivan right off the bat without really thinking too much about it, and doing a lot of what I would call Band-Aid solutions just to kind of keep up with the traffic or the interest, which was great on one hand, but on the other hand, you don't build a solid base for growth that way. So in our second year, we actually had to go back and kind of really restructure things, and I hired a business consultant to come in that would really help us create that solid foundation so that we could scale. So I think one of the most important things to do when you're building a business, no matter what size you're starting with, is to always think about it in its realized form. So in your dream, think about how big do you want this company to be? Where do you want this company to go? Because, everybody has a different dream. every company doesn't have to be Coca-Cola. That might not be your dream. It might be my dream to have a growing city in every city around the world. So I always thought about the company as that big of an enterprise. So what would we need in order to scale up? So I was always kind of living a bit in the future. So try to have that picture in mind when you're building things so that you don't have to change every year to accommodate new growth or new locations or whatnot. Because if you build it right from the beginning, it's going to save you a lot of time and money down the line.
So we have just under 10 minutes left over to ask questions. So if you're holding on to one, you might want to raise your hand and let someone with a microphone come to you. I see that there's someone in the back of the room over here, and then one over on the far end as well. So first and then second.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So just following on from those comments, do you see that there is a limitation in any of your business models, or what does success look like? Like, how big can you guys get, or like, where are you going, I guess?
This business is not like a great business to start. The infrastructure cost to do this in an urban setting is ridiculous compared to what you could just do outside of the city. It's cost prohibitive. It's $80,000 per half acre or something for the infrastructure alone. So that's one thing. That said, everybody wants to do it, so there's demand. So as Soul Food, we're expanding to a farm outside of the city that has housing for the people that we work with, which will change our business completely. So we'll go from 4.5 acres to 54.5 acres, which completely changes the whole model. And then also we're working on this, well, right now we're writing the toolkit, but we also have these manufactured boxes and this branding profile. And there are other municipalities that would like to do the same thing as Soul Food for their communities, but it's about finding a good nonprofit partner that's working in that community. And then it's about how much input do they want us as like the founding parent to have. And we're just trying to work on what those structures look like.
Well, we talk about how we want to see ourselves in 5 years all the time, and 10 years. And to be honest, I think that we want to stay within Vancouver. We'd like to outreach to neighboring municipalities, but I think we're going to keep it pretty local. I think there's a lot of room for growth within Vancouver for our business. It's a pretty dense population, and I still don't see enough people growing their own food where they can in the city. So we have 2 work trucks right now that we run on recycled biodiesel. I just had to mention that. And yeah, I'd like to see many more, and I'd like to see our co-op grow. We currently have 3 members, and we have a 4th coming on board. And yeah, I'd like to see our co-op grow 15, 20 people. But I would say that that's our 5-year plan. And yeah, I want to keep it local for us.
I think that's a great question. I keep saying that, but you guys are so smart. You all have great questions. But I do feel like it's really important to know that. And I think that there's a lot of pressure with when you start a business that everyone around you expects that you're going to grow this billion-dollar business, and if you don't, then you're not successful. I think it's important to know what it is that you want. You know, is it a lifestyle business? Is this a legacy that you want to pass down? And that's okay if you just want to work from home and make enough money to get by. You don't have to be a billionaire. For me, I feel like I want to have a growing city all around the world tomorrow, you know, but I know that it's going to take time. And I do feel like people will always pressure you to go bigger, go bigger, go bigger, and that's just our culture. But I feel like you can resist that. It's not necessarily the best way to grow a business. I'm all about, you know, being sustainable, scaling it appropriately, and growing a strong business. Because if you're not in the tech space, you're not going to get that hockey stick multiplier overnight and then probably sell. You know, I'm not looking at a 3 to 5 year timeline to exit my business. I want to build something that I can leave. So when I'm dead, I want Growing City to keep on going, you know, and that's something that I'm proud of, and that means a lot to me in my life. So I'm taking my time and trying to make the best choices that I can and resist a lot of the pressure to, like, be a millionaire and, be really lavish, even though that would be nice. I won't say no if that happens to come my way. Or any of you, I wish that on everybody. Because I feel like you can be a passionate entrepreneur and be successful, but also have a really positive, tangible impact on our community and the planet. And I think that traditional kind of view, which is that you're going to be a poor entrepreneur if you're working in the environment, or you can't make money, or it's not glamorous, or it's not cool or fun or whatever, I think that's totally old school, doesn't exist anymore. You can be Bill Gates of the future with a sustainable enterprise. There's a lot of things that you can do now. So I feel like that's my passion rant for today, but, good luck with everything and scale it, yeah.
I just want to tag in for a second. I started by saying Vancouver Farmers Markets is not just about farmers markets, and we really mean it. We really think that local food needs to be bigger. There needs to be more local food infrastructure, and we see a lot of opportunity for building that and kind of have the nonprofit social enterprise that we hope to propel it. Always need partners, always need innovators, but there's a lot of opportunity up there. I think we are running out of time, so we have one more question. I think there's someone over on the far side. Yes?
Okay. I just had a question specifically to cooperatives. So I'm starting to hear a lot about more cooperatives there in Victoria, Vancouver, elsewhere in Canada. And I'm just really curious for people who are thinking about starting a business as a cooperative, what maybe some of the perceived barriers are, or maybe what some of the actual barriers are, or maybe advantages for having that business model. So basically, how to sell it to someone who's considering that as an option.
For sure. I would advise seeking more information on the various co-op models that you could start. The BC Association of Co-ops is a good place to start. They're really, really, really awesome. I think there's a lot of advantages to being a co-op. You are bringing on members that have different skill sets, that have an ownership in the business and have a passion in the business and will help the business grow. One point of advice I would give is the co-op structure is really malleable. Your rules and memorandum are very malleable. So I would say it can be very basic and it can be very complicated. I'd say we have a very complicated co-op structure. You really need to understand your future in a co-op. There's different levels of class shares. It can be a very complicated model, so we did a lot of research. We kind of created our own model within the co-op model. I would say seeking a professional too. There are special co-op lawyers that can help you with that process, and we did that when we incorporated as a worker-run co-op, so I'd advise that too, just so you don't miss anything.
Okay, so coming to the end of our lunchtime panel, thank you so much for everyone, your attention. The clinking of the forks stopped a little while ago, so you guys have been keeping them wrapped. If I can just pose one last question to you guys, and make you do it in the 10 words or less. Either what words of advice did you receive from someone when starting out that you think was really, really valuable, 10 words of less, or what words of advice do you wish someone had given you when starting out? Dun, dun, dun.
Our business mentor recently said something to us that really resonated, and he said, "You're not going to fail, it's great. But if you did, if you failed miserably, the worst thing that can happen is that you just paid yourself to go to business school for 3 years."
I would say it's really important to keep in mind that what looks like a problem is almost always an opportunity in disguise. So sometimes it might look like a setback or it might look like a failure, but what it really is there's something in there that you can take out of it and make even more valuable. So don't feel like you're failing. There's no such thing, really, as long as you're learning.
I think it was just more the representation that somebody put, like, just the way they were. And my original mentor was Ken Leoche. He started the Social Enterprise United We Can in the downtown east side. And it was just like, just be absolutely bold and almost like borderline crazy. Like, because everybody can get an education, everybody can be like, but there's not a lot of people that just like take it by the horns and go for it. And that was like definitely a learning lesson for me. It was like, okay, just rip into it.
All right, great. Do you guys give rounds of applause? Can we? Thanks all. All right, I don't know what's happening next, but I see the man who does know what's happening is making his way through the tables.
All right, well, let's thank the panelists once more. There you go. And